Hello and welcome to No More Daydreams. This is JJ Briggs, and thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to quickly say hello. Again, thank you for being here and introduce who we have on today. So we have on Emily Terrani. Emily is a friend of mine from Cornell. Actually, we met freshman year at Cornell. We were in the same freshman writing seminar. I think my two writing seminars were the only courses my freshman year that had less than probably goodness 200 people. So it was nice to be in a smaller classroom and actually kind of get to know the people in the class. But I reached out to Emily to see if she wanted to come on the podcast because, oh my gosh, she's just one of those people that, like, one, you just like know when you sit down and you talk to them that they just salt of the earth, just like pure heart, just like their character, that like they operate from love, like you just can like feel compassion um from people sometimes. And I reached out because everything she shares on her Instagram, on her coaching Instagram, really resonates. And it's very similar to a lot of the things I talk to my clients about, right? Focusing on progress, not perfection, the emphasis on self compassion, the emphasis on addressing our self talk. So it was really great to talk to her because she actually works with it's called the Institute of Coaching. She got her master's degree with Harvard, and that's how she got into coaching. I think her master's is in psychology, and now she works for this Harvard Institute of Coaching. So having her background in psychology, having the credentials that she does, it was really cool to be able to talk to her um, about just coaching and to hear what she works with her clients about, and to also to just kind of like hear her journey from graduation to where she is now. um it felt kind of similar in a way to my career, my journey. She talked about wanting to kind of go from healthcare marketing to something that was closer to people. She studied human development in college, so knew that like she wanted kind of like that people aspect. So we talked about the aspect of our kind of shared humanity, and we talked about how to make sure that like we're making choices defined by our own values. And yeah, it was just a really great conversation. Emily, come back anytime. Literally 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever it is. I know that we can have a great conversation. So I really, really appreciated your time. I hope that you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. I will link all of her information in the show notes below. So I will sign off here as well. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you, Emily, for your time yesterday. Thank you all who listen and who subscribe, and the comments on reels, and the texts, or the hey, I heard your voice in my head, tell me to do X, like all of those little messages, little notes, they truly go a long, long way to keep me showing up here and trying my best to add value and just help in any way that I can, and create an impact. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Without further ado, here's our conversation.
Hi, how are you?
Hello. Oh my gosh, I'm doing so well. How are you?
Good. It's so good to see you.
I know it's good to see you like in real time. I feel like I was just thinking, I was like, I feel like you're somebody who like since graduation I've definitely like kind of like kept up with. Like I feel like
Mhm.
our careers kind of like overlap.
Yeah.
Also, like I don't know many people whose husband is like a bodybuilding physician. So that's like I'm like interested in the nutrition part of that too. So I'm like, it's just good to see you like IRL and in real time.
I know, right? I can't remember if we saw each other at reunion or not. It was now almost
Wait,
5 years ago.
maybe. Were you there?
Yeah, were you?
Did you see Jenny at all? Is
Yeah.
she
So I
back?
think
I'm sure we overlapped probably.
yeah.
Are you going back for next year?
I think so, but I'm not sure. We'll see.
Yeah.
What about you?
Um, I think so. I feel like it's snuck up on people. So we haven't like started talking about it, but I'm like, we're at the stage of life where like we're starting to plan next summer, this summer. So like,
I know. I know I have to book my friends like 3 months in advance to see them.
yeah,
We're at that part of adult life.
yeah. And I think I think like I'm really grateful for like my friends. Well, actually, all of my friends, because people who don't kind of think this way, we don't really, we're not really aligned. But it's like my friends know that like if you're not hearing from me, if I'm not responding to you, it doesn't mean I love you any less or care about you
Hmm.
any less. It just means that like I'm fiercely protecting my time as best as I can and just trying to keep this boat moving, and we'll catch up when we can catch up.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think I have any friends that expect that we're going to communicate every single day
And oh hell no, not every single day. And like
or
even
even
like
like that frequently.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And even like Jenny, I just bring her up because she's like a mutual good friend of ours. And like her and Dan came into Richmond, and Lucy and I, my girlfriend and I, had dinner with them. And I couldn't tell you the last time I talked to Jenny, not at a
Uh-huh.
wedding or,
Yeah. I know
like,
it's only big events too now.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it just it feels so good to just like pick up where you leave off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you know true friends when that happens.
Yeah. And I think too, like another thing that really stands out about you and like the friends in my life, it's like when you talk about empathy, when you talk about compassion on your stories and as a part of your reels and as a part of coaching, it's like, I know that's who you are. Like,
Hmm.
like you operate from love. Like I feel like there's certain people like it's the character of their heart and their intentions. And it just I don't know,
Yeah,
like that trust I feel like is really important. So
definitely.
okay, so I'm excited to have you on here. One, because I have missed doing um episodes with other people. And I feel really grateful that I can just like have anybody I want on who, their work interests me or some philosophy of theirs interests me. So if you could take just like a few minutes, introduce yourself. We know each other from Cornell, and you studied was it human development, or what was your,
Yeah, human
okay.
development. Hmm.
And I know you got your master's at Harvard, but I don't know too much about like kind of what you're, because it looks like you're still a little connected with like the Institute of Coaching, or I don't know. So introduce
Sure.
yourself and what you're doing and what you've been up to for the last almost 10 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, this is really fun because you're literally a day one Cornell person for me. Like
Yeah,
I
literally
think
freshman year.
our writing seminar, is that what it was called? It was
Yes,
like
it
the
was
first or second
Enlightenment
day of
Science
class.
Fiction.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
still a pretty fun class. But yeah, so I basically stumbled upon coaching, and I'm probably going to go backwards because it's all connected. So, um, I graduated from Cornell. I had a human development degree, and I was like, what do I do with this? And I had gotten an internship. I think it was the summer before senior year. And that
Hmm.
ended up turning into the job I got afterwards, which was healthcare marketing. I did marketing for pharmaceutical
Hmm.
companies. And it was like the perfect post grad job because marketing agency culture was really fun. But
Yeah.
after a few years, I got to the point where I was like, I'm having so many meetings about what shade of a color the brand is for this pharmaceutical company. Like, this is
Yeah.
not my life purpose
Yeah.
um, or a mission. So I
Yeah.
wanted to be closer to people because that's really what I had wanted to do. And then from there, at that point, I was with my husband at the time, and we ended up
How
moving
did you two meet?
abroad. We met when we were 16, actually. So we had known each other for a while and then started dating after
Oh,
college. And so I was able to switch and started working, still doing marketing, but for a private medical practice. And that was more in line, but still ultimately not quite,
step closer.
yeah, a step
Yeah.
closer, because at least I felt like I was helping individual patients and people.
Yeah.
And then at some point, we were abroad, and I was like, this is not occupying enough of my time just working. And I
Yeah.
just had that itch to go back to school. And I had
Where were
explored,
you living abroad?
we were in Mexico, in Guadalajara.
I feel like I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was for three
Was he in
years.
med school?
Hmm. And I was like, sure, I'll go
I remember that now. Okay.
work on
Okay.
my Spanish and
Yeah.
explore because I always loved traveling.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
then also part of me was like, I'm following this man, a boy around me. He ended up being my husband, but still
Yeah.
like that, like I'm an
There's still,
independent woman.
yeah. No, there's definitely part of that still.
But it ended up, I kind of, I do really believe in everything for a reason, because of that program, I found the Harvard program because it was a partial in person and partial online, because it's made
Okay.
for people that are working and or international, and
Yeah.
I was both. And if I was in the US, I probably wouldn't have come across Harvard or even considered like, oh, I could get in or be part of
Yeah.
Harvard at all. And so, after some exploring, I realized psychology is what I want to do because
Mhm.
going all the way back to middle school and high school, I was a peer mentor and I
I
always
think
really
I did
liked
that in
helping
middle school,
people.
yeah.
Yeah. And so now that I found coaching in hindsight, I'm like, this makes perfect sense. But it's
Yeah.
surprising that when I was doing it all along, I never thought of it as being my career. So
Mhm.
through that program, I went on campus. Did I just break up a little?
Just a little bit, but you're
Okay.
good. Yeah.
Um, so through that program, went on campus and met one of the girls that I had seen in my online classes,
Mhm.
and she started working for a professor, which was the course that we were in, which was the
Mhm.
psychology of coaching. So probably a few months after that in-person course, she started working for the Institute of Coaching, and then she
Okay.
knew that I was in the healthcare marketing, that it still wasn't close enough to what I wanted to be doing. So she pulled
Yeah.
me in. I was able to do both for a while. And then eventually the Institute of Coaching became full time. And
Yeah.
through that, I was just inspired by the members and the work, and it just felt
Yeah.
really right. And so last December now, I was able to kick off my own coaching business. And so
And
that's
here
how I
we
landed
are.
where I am
Oh
here.
my gosh. Thank you for sharing. That's so cool. Especially in hindsight, just knowing that, mentoring, leading, coaching, counseling, whatever it is. Like, I feel like there's a lot of different avenues that people can kind of like scratch that itch, as you were saying, or kind of like
Hmm.
feel that fulfillment. And I jotted down, you wanted to be closer to people. I feel like something I've been thinking a lot about recently, especially just with the current political climate and even like the acceleration of AI. Like, just I've been thinking about like humanity a lot
Hmm.
and like our shared humanity and how important it is that we like figure out ways to get closer to people, closer to
Definitely.
ourselves. And I think the coaching is such a wonderful way to do that. Um, a question I thought of earlier, because you have a psych background, I'm interested in like your um, take on this. What would you say the difference between like therapy and counseling is versus coaching?
Someone just explained this to me, and I love this metaphor. It's trainer.
Wait, hold up.
Oh.
You cut out at metaphor.
um, it's like going to personal training versus physical therapy. So, personal
Oh,
training is the coaching domain, and
yeah.
physical therapy is the therapy. Where you really can only do personal training if you're well to a certain degree. And of course,
Mhm,
we do touch on, like, you have to touch on things in the past. Um, just for context, but you're not
mhm,
focused on it. You're more focused on where you are right now and moving forward and doing different practices and talking through things so that you can be your best self,
mhm.
as opposed to with therapy. It's really, it can be that, but it also is focused on the unwell parts or looking at your past and really sifting through that. So
Yeah.
I like to explain that coaching is really behavior change and goal
Mhm.
focused and future focused.
Yeah. I like that explanation. I think sometimes, like, especially like being a registered dietitian, like sometimes being goal focused and behavior focused and like future focused, especially like with emotional eating and binge eating and like certain like disordered eating patterns, it kind of like requires an amount of reflection and cultivating
Hmm.
self-awareness and kind of like it's not therapy, but it like sometimes I feel like the lines can get a little blurred. So I appreciate that like
Because it is
explanation.
therapeutic. That's how I
Yes.
often explain it too.
Oh, I
Like, it's
love
gonna
that.
help you and make you
This is
feel
not
better.
therapy, but it is therapeutic, just like a massage can be therapeutic. Are you?
Mhm.
And you might not be able to, I don't want to put you in any sort of pickle or um I can certainly cut any questions out. Um one thing, okay, so let me you gave me like your like graduation to now. Let me give you mine really quickly.
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
So I yeah, I did my dietetic internship, became a dietitian. My ex and I, before we got married, lived in Philly for a little bit. My first job there, I was like a retailing, so I was like fresh out of my internship, and I thought that I was going to be going into is a program called Accelerate to Leadership. So they were placing um like grads. like new grads into like kind of like entry level management positions. But when I
Okay.
got to where I was going, I realized they were just going to like use us as like patient rounding, which is great and important. It needs to be done, but it's like
For
not what I
you.
signed up for in a hospital.
Mhm.
So I took on a job as a retail and catering manager with the same hospital just because I was like, I want the management experience. I was there for a year. Then I did clinical dietetics for a year. Then after I got married, switched to food service. I became a food service director. So back to kind of like the food service side. And but I loved the people. And I feel I'm still very much so learning how to be how did you peacefully productive? Is that how you describe it on your website? I think I'm
Yeah.
still learning how to be peacefully productive and I'm still kind of learning like, okay, how do I like actually set like myself up to get work done and manage my ADHD and take my Adderall on time and like all of these things. Um, so kind of some of like the administrative parts of management positions and all of that, I was not the strongest at, but I was really great at the people and
Hmm.
developing a culture. And like I wanted the best for my employees. I don't care if that meant transferring to supply chain or transferring elsewhere or like my goal was to like take care of them as much as I could as humans. And I knew that I wanted to go into coaching, like nutrition coaching, life coaching, but I just couldn't do both at the same time. So I took a position with a tech company, was there for 2 years, and now I'm in business full time. And I
Did
feel
you
like,
do something related to nutrition with the tech company?
yeah, we did like food service software. So for
Oh, cool.
hospitals, so like teaching them how to implement our software. And I was a
Mhm.
product instructor. I like the position um and both where I was a food service director and then I was a product instructor. No, I think so. Yeah. I don't even remember my title. But in both situations I had an opportunity to climb the ladder and said no.
Mhm.
One was informal, one was a very formal offer and right around the same time that like said no to the supervisor position at the tech company, I kind of knew like, all right, like if I'm going to truly live with no more daydreams, if I'm actually going to do coaching and live a fulfilled life and like I knew that I needed to like get out of my marriage and it was just not the right
Mhm.
fit for me. Where's it going at with all of that? Okay, so I feel like even as businesses maybe slowed or, I've kind of had opportunities to pick up some jobs here and there, and I've said kind of no to like I feel I don't want to say I guess maybe jaded is the right word, but not jaded, but like it's like you see certain things in the corporate world, and like it's like that people aren't operating out of compassion or operating out of it's felt really difficult for me to kind of like reconcile like where do I fit in this machine? Where do I,
Mhm.
does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. It's a
Did,
misalignment of values.
yeah. So did you feel the misalignment of values before like in your experiences before you got to coaching?
Yeah, I just remember I was commuting into the city. I felt like I was in the rat race. I didn't have the freedom I wanted on a day-to-day basis. Um, yeah, I just always kind of envisioned myself having a day-to-day life where I'm actually enjoying every day and not living for the weekend when I'm off of work.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that you said that the freedom every day. So to you, what does that feel like? Like what does freedom feel like to you?
It's very liberating. Like even today, I have a 1-year-old and he happened to not sleep great last night. And I was able to take a nap before we got on here. Right.
Yeah.
And I do still work at the Institute of Coaching and it's very flexible. All of us are remote. So it's being able to choose my own schedule, being
Mhm.
able to go to an appointment or leave my house or work from wherever I want.
Mhm.
And that is what provides me the ability to be mentally well, to
Mhm.
be my best self, and just enjoy every day, basically.
Yeah.
While also the work itself is fulfilling. I feel like you need those two parts. Like you need the freedom, but then also when you're getting down to it, you like what you're
You
doing.
like what you're doing. Exactly. I feel like my mom certainly taught us to be resourceful. Like whatever I need to do to learn, like we'll figure it out.
Hmm.
But it's really great when I don't feel like I have to quote unquote kind of like force myself to do the work or
Hmm.
do certain things. It's like discipline is important and discipline, like, certainly, like, comes in, but I don't wanna have to, like, tap into my discipline to be able to, like, clock into work, right? I wanna, like, tap into my discipline when I, like, am resisting journaling and I'm resisting meditation and I'm, like, resisting therapeutic things that I know are gonna feel good.
Exactly. Yeah, and I don't know about you, but this helps balance my type A personality. Like, why am I productivity and a stress coach? Because I myself struggle with it. Like that's what I also like about coaching. Like, you're by no means the expert. So
No,
I'm
you're
not
right
the
there in the
expert.
trenches. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I know and I'm working through this because I'm experiencing it myself. So
Yes.
working remotely, like, I will work till 10 p.m. some nights if I need to. But if and when I was in the corporate world, like, I'm the person that you need me to stay here till 1 a.m. Sure, I'll do it. But
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
having the balance of remote life, I was like, okay, it like
It kinda
compensates for
yeah.
my personality type.
Yeah, well, and it's I feel like why why I was excited to talk to you too, because I feel like I have a bunch of things in my journal that I think about and ways that I look at the world and perspectives and this and that, but it's not rooted in, like, psychology
Hmm.
or, like, peer-reviewed evidence sometimes. It's just observations or what I experience or what my clients are experiencing. So, I appreciate you saying that you struggle with the same things that you're helping, your clients or who you're coaching with because I feel very aware of, I never wanna be like, "Oh, yeah, I have it all figured out."
Hmm.
Like, I have every single like, it's just not true, and people who kind of like, I guess it's tough for me to figure out how to, um not a great marketer because I feel like I'm like, I don't wanna be like a snake oil salesman and be like, "Yeah, I can help you exactly this." Like,
Hmm.
I don't know, it just feels like a little, like, slimy
I know I
sometimes.
struggle with that too. What has been helpful, someone once told me that you have to go into it like it's a disservice not to tell people what you can help them with. And
Yeah.
that definitely helps me. I still can't get fully over that, but
Yeah.
whenever that's little voices in my head, I'm like, "No, I'm here to help people, and if I
Yeah.
don't communicate it, then how am I gonna do that?"
Yeah. No, I like that a lot, and I think about that sometimes too. I'm like, literally, the goal that drives me the most is teaching people how to talk to each other. So, like, it's not like that's like a far-fetched like, of course I can do that on a small scale, large scale, and it's not like, I wanna be a multi-billionaire with a yacht, it's like we're driven by, like, what did you say? There's a misalignment of
Values.
values. Yeah, so it's like, I feel like as long as I'm living in alignment with my values, then I'm on the right track.
Yeah, and from observing you on social media all this time and having known you personally, like, your authentic self really comes out. Like, I know that the JJ on social media and the real JJ are like
Yeah,
more or less the same person, and like your positivity and just everything about you really comes through. So I would say you're doing a great job.
I appreciate you sharing that, I really do. I feel like yeah, it feels very important for me to be authentic and to come across authentic, and, like, there's a fine line between, what's private and what, I don't know
Hmm.
anybody anything, but especially, like, coming off of my divorce and transitioning into entrepreneurship full time and, sometimes like, this is kind of how I felt is, like, sometimes, like, I was put in positions, especially, like, through work and stuff where, like, there was a misalignment of values, but the part of you that will stay at the office until 1 AM and,
Hmm.
that's the part of me that's like, "Well, let me backdate this," or, "Let me tell this person this lie and then actually go leave and do it." Like, sometimes my speech or things that I had to do in order to survive in some of those environments, it didn't feel aligned,
Hmm.
and I think that there's just something so important about, like, how do we teach people to be okay with the fact that we are human, and to
Hmm.
be human is to err. So I guess kind of how do you work through some of, like, whether it's, like, all or nothing or perfectionism? I guess, like, do you struggle with that too? And, to your clients and kind of, like, what mindset shifts or kind of, like, behavior change do you find that really helps with the kind of like all or nothing thinking or perfectionism, or, the need to punish ourselves if we make a mistake?
Yeah, this is one of the biggest things I work with clients on, and definitely myself. Like I said, I'm type A personality. I also have suffered with perfectionism as I've gotten older. Just the having the psychology background and all the research
Mhm.
and information, and like the psychology, a lot of times they call instead of research, it's me search. So
Me
that's
search.
helped. But perfectionism is very ironic because you think that it's helping you be more productive, but it's actually detrimental. It's like at what cost? Like everything essentially that I focus on is it can be helpful, but at some point it takes a turn and it becomes detrimental. So a lot of times perfectionists tie their self-worth with what they're achieving, and they put so much stress to get it done. Or I was just talking with a client that, like, if you are in corporate America, the our society and these structures, these systems and organizations are built to optimize perfectionism because you're getting
Yeah.
200% out of each employee, right? So
Yeah.
it works to their
And they
benefit.
don't it's human
Mhm.
resources because we're a resource. It's like,
Yeah.
how can they get it? I always tell people, and even when I was still in a corporate and even when I was in a management position, I was like, you are replaceable, you are expendable.
Hmm.
Like, you might have some people that do genuinely care about you, but at the end of the day, like, it's about the bottom line.
Yeah. So it's really the values come up. A lot of times people don't actively think about, okay, what is important to me in personal life, work life? Does this align with the work I'm doing? I think it's interesting that you shared that it sounds like you made a shift in both your work and your personal life at the same time. And
Yeah.
I've observed that a lot of times in clients. Like if one's misaligned, a lot of times the other is too. And we have this like awakening where we're like, everything needs to change. And
No,
it's scary,
yeah.
it's uncomfortable,
Yeah.
but on the other side, it's
It's
refreshing.
so worth it. And that's what, yeah. Cause oh, you posted this. I was like, somebody posted this online today. It was literally you.
What
But
did I
the
post?
difficult decisions, I'm sorry, easy decisions lead to a difficult life, but difficult decisions lead to an easy life. And
Hmm.
that's what I feel right now. I wake up every morning, I could be making $20 a month. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm scraping it together. I live with this amazing partner. Look at this home. We have a roof. Like, it truly feels like it just feels so easy to tap into gratitude and to like,
Hmm.
on the other hand, there's a lot of existential crises about like, oh my God, look at all of these things that are so clearly fixed by just some communication and compassion. So I feel like I have to balance the existential crisis with just like the gratitude. But it truly, what it felt like was the TLDR is that it truly felt like I was on a work trip and um, I was lost my car keys and I'm walking in the morning. It's 4:30 in the morning, about to head into the hospital to help with a go live, and it's snowing and it's Buffalo, New York, and I just like it felt like literally the universe, the voice of God, whatever it was, it literally felt like a higher power being like, this is your last chance to take the
Mm.
actions that you know you need to take before we take the control out of your hands and do it ourselves. Like, it just felt like a message of, in your heart what you need to do, what is right, and I don't care how hard it is, you need to do it. And like, of course, like faith can waver, but like it's felt like kind of like since that moment, it's been like, okay, like, you know, leaving, like, just because I'm married doesn't mean that I need to stay married
Mhm.
forever. Like, just because I'm in a job doesn't mean that I need to stay in that job forever. Just because I've communicated one way with person doesn't mean I can't, you know, communicate them a different way. I got sober from alcohol again. I like, it just kind of like forced a lot of like what you talked about, like behavior change. Um, but that's kind of like what the moment was for me. And also, I've always been interested in like Buddhism and psychology. And have you read the Four Agreements?
No, but I've heard of them.
It's really good. And I feel like that was the book. It's a pretty quick read. I would say if I could only recommend one book to anybody ever again, it would be that one because it's a really quick read. But essentially, the Four Agreements are: one, be impeccable with your word, right? Like, our word is magic, our word is powerful. So be impeccable with your word. There's a difference between like niceness and kindness. Sometimes
Mhm.
like the kind thing to do is to say the hard thing.
Right.
Number two, don't take things personally. Um, if I texted you, hey, I'll be on at 12:05, and you responded with, my time is important and I have a hard stop at 1, like if you snapped back at me, that's not personal. Like that's clearly
Mhm.
something going on with you. Your 1-year-old didn't sleep well. Like, like not taking things personally. Number three, don't make assumptions. Um, so like a lot of like, and Lucy and my girlfriend and I like, it's like you think you communicate well, and then there's just always more and more layers and ways in which we realize we're making assumptions. So like one thing I've tried to stop doing is like I no longer read indirect social cues. Like I even if I'm picking up on the social cues, I will like until you tell me directly what you need
Mm.
or what you're thinking, like that's on you to but
Is that
sometimes
for
it comes to
anyone or specifically your girlfriend?
so most of the with her, like I can pick up on it. I'm like, hey, like I'm sensing like a bit of a shift. Like I can tell if it was XYZ comment I just made, or if, you're just tired or what. Like, so I kind of
Mhm.
like bring that up and like say that.
You'll prompt the directness.
Yes, I will prompt the directness. And she's very direct as well and like committed to it as well.
Okay, that's
So
great.
depending on the situation, like there's sometimes where it's like, no, I don't feel like doing the emotion, like whatever the situation is, like I will endure the social awkwardness because I don't want to do the emotional labor. But
Mhm.
if it's Lucy or a good friend or whatever, like I will prompt the directness because it's important to me to feel connected to these people.
Right.
Um, so number three, don't make assumptions. Like instead of me assuming, oh my God, XYZ joke I just said did not land and now she's upset. Don't make assumptions. Ask and realize it's like, oh no, I just stubbed my toe upstairs and like it still hurts.
Yeah.
And then number
Because you never
four,
know.
yeah, exactly. And number four is always try your best. No more, no less. Like if we try more than we need to do, like if we overextend ourselves, that's wasted energy that could have gone elsewhere. Like do the job that needs to be done. Don't overextend yourself, but also don't dog it. Don't not try. And also the recognition that like our best is going to look different depending on the day.
Mhm.
Um, you got a
That's
nap
so
in.
important. People don't
So
understand that.
yes. Yeah. Did you play sports growing up?
Mhm.
What did you play? Was it
I
tennis?
played soccer. I
Soccer.
tried tennis for a very brief period of life, but didn't work out. Soccer and track were my primary
Okay.
things, and then I danced. So I don't know
Okay.
if something athletic. I don't know if you consider that a
I
sport.
do. I danced for 8 years, ballet, tap, and jazz. And I think the dance it requires athleticism and rhythm. And no, I definitely will stand behind dance.
Okay, thanks. And then I go to the gym with my husband. He taught me how. And that I think is the part where I really realize what we're talking about now, where like every day is different. Like some days you're just so tired and you are putting your best effort in and it's
Hmm.
just not getting the output that you would on
Yeah.
a prime day. And you have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's true for that. I try and help clients with this too, because like even myself last week, I wasn't feeling great and I wasn't very productive, didn't perform well. I actually have a workshop coming up and I was like, last week I'm going to have it done. Like it's not done at all, but
Yeah.
I just was like, I'm aware that I'm not feeling well. I'll recover and then I'll be able to be on my A game and whatever I'm able to
Yes.
get done today. So that's where the self compassion
And
comes in that you started
yes.
off with.
Yes. And it's like, it's, it's so easy. I bring up sports because I feel like I see it a lot in like a lot of like athletics culture of like you just grind or you hustle more and it's like the answer is always like more, 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 more.
Hmm.
Whereas, excuse me, whereas um sometimes the answer is like, actually, I'm not fueled enough to max out today, or like adjusting based on what is your current circumstance, not what is your ideal circumstance. How do you wish the day had gone?
Hmm.
Like, I know you wanted to get 8 hours of sleep last night. I know you like, but like, what is your current reality? And what is the
Hmm.
best case moving forward in your current reality versus like beating ourselves up or not having self compassion or being like, well, if I don't do this specific thing that I set my mind to do today, then I'm weak or I am
Mhm.
failing or I'm, does that make sense?
Yeah, all the negative self-talk.
Yeah.
It makes total sense. I would say
How
I'm
important is
positioned
self-talk?
it's essentially everything because that's who is with you all the time, right? You're
Yeah.
only with the little voice in your head
Yeah.
for your entire life. And we
Yeah.
don't even realize a lot of times that that voice exists. And we have a lot of automatic thoughts and speech that come up, and you accept them as a truth and reality. And that's also something that I work on a lot. And I try and be self aware too, because a lot of times I do commend myself that generally my self talk is positive. But
Mhm.
after I started coaching people, I'm like, I need to check this. And I noticed it more. And I noticed like there's many instances where maybe it's not like
Mhm.
totally negative as I would think
Yeah.
that some other people, but
The
it's
better
still
you get at it,
negative.
the better you get at the self-talk, I think this like I had to say sometimes the voice gets sneakier and it
Mm-hmm.
gets like it gets creative and you
Mm-hmm.
realize, oh my gosh. Okay, maybe it wasn't this overt thing like me calling myself a POS, but that all right, we're gonna check you and we're gonna make sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think it gets creative and it gets sneaky and there's always like new levels.
Yeah. And have you heard of internal family systems?
I've heard of it, but I know nothing about it.
So I'm definitely, again, not an expert on it, but it is a type of therapy, but you can use it in coaching. It's essentially there's different parts of you. And
Hmm.
that's pretty much like the minimum that you need to know in order to coach someone on it. But there's different parts that exist to protect you or to help, but they
Mm.
end up not doing that. They end up hurting you, or that's where the negative self-talk comes into play.
Yeah.
So um an aspect of recognizing the self-talk is like, okay, what part of me is talking to me
Yeah.
right now? If you're feeling angry, what is the anger protecting? And that
Yeah.
can also be helpful because even if you're just aware of it and you don't do anything, it's also like takes it away from you. It's like, this isn't me. This is just a part
Mhm.
of me that's trying to help me. And okay, I
Yeah.
can put you over there and I can bring out this other part of me that actually
Yeah.
will help me get it done. So it's
Y
a fun
I
way of thinking about it too.
I have a hypnotherapist that I'll work with. I'll kinda, like, see every other month or so, and she's great, and, like, we'll do a lot of, I guess, like, parts therapy or kind of similar to this, like, internal family systems, like, sometimes I'll go into it being like, "Okay, this is what I'm struggling with." Like, right now, I'm struggling with, like, there's not a lack of ideas, there's, like, a lack of, like, taking it across the
Mhm.
finish line. And, like, kind of rewriting the limiting belief of, like, I never finish things and I can't learn new things or I'll never be efficient at this or, like, kind of rewriting some of that. And so I'll kind of tell her, like, what I want to work on. And, we'll do the hypnosis. And sometimes she'll be like, okay, what is the part of you? Like, what is the part of you um, that believes this or that is thinking this? And it's always a past version of myself. A lot
Mm.
of the times it's little like 10-year-old me or 12-year-old me. This past session, it was freshman year of Cornell me when I got to Cornell and I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like, my experience was like, I grew up in this tiny town in Middletown, Delaware, big fish in a small pond, graduated 3rd in my class, like star softball player, and I get to Cornell and my like not having softball and having school, like, having my time, like, more, like, kinda regulated and being at home and, like, having, like, the
Uh-huh.
structure was, like, really good for me, and you just get to Cornell, and I'm like, "I'm living in a townhouse, I am the dumbest person in this class, like, how do this is
You're
chemistry?"
describing my
Like
exact experience
yes!
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like, "Oh, what do I do?" And I'm like, "Well,
Mhm.
obviously, I play softball and we drink." Like, that's the focus. My kinda tactic was just like, I'm just gonna wing it. I'm just gonna coast because C's get degrees. And if I fail the test, well, of course I did because I studied for 20 minutes beforehand. And, like, I
Uh-huh.
feel like that was the part of me that came up. And I feel like part of it too is like a reconciliation between like the woman I am now is not the woman that I was yesterday, is not the woman that I was 2 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever. Like allowing ourselves the
The growth, the
yes.
change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, we have to grow, we have to change, so, um, I like that of kinda like, what part of you or, like sometimes I think about my negative self-talk too of, like, like you're saying, like, okay, what is this trying to protect? Or what initially did this
Yeah.
develop to protect? Because, back at that age, I didn't know any different.
And then that again comes back to self-compassion. Like you can be angry at the fact that you're feeling a certain way, but if you recognize why it's there, it enables you to be aware of it, accept it, and then figure out how to nurture it so that you can move on
Mhm.
basically and get to where
Yeah,
you want to go.
and isn't it I don't know where I read this, but I read somewhere that, like, having the self-compassionate approach is, like, so much more effective than having, like, a negative self-talk or a perfectionist approach when it comes to achievement and, like, I guess I use success because success is gonna be different for everybody, but even
Mhm.
in, like, the mainstream, like, grind hustle culture, like, having more self-compassion, it's always gonna be a net gain.
Yeah, and the other part too is emotional agility, which is one of the
Mm,
directors at the Institute of Coaching. This is like her specialty. Emotional agility is basically able, like you're able to really feel and accept and experience the breadth of emotions, and you invite them in and you stay with it. Like, not that if you experience sadness, you're like sulk into depression and you're there for a while. But if you were like, oh, I don't want to feel sad, and you push it off and push it off, it's going to blow up at some point. So if
yeah,
you let yourself experience it, you're going to be able to work through it more. And
yeah,
with perfectionists and that grind culture, you don't. I
mm,
actually am situated at the complete opposite, which is kind of counterintuitive to what you would think of performance and a burnout and a productivity coach. But that's because, like, my experience at Cornell, I kind of went a different direction where I had to overwork in order to
mhm,
keep up my grades. And I remember junior year, first semester, it was like a crazy hectic semester because I wanted to go abroad the next semester.
mhm,
Like, I remember days I barely had time to take a shower, and
yeah,
I didn't have time to like, think about how stressed out I was because I was like, "That's a waste of time." Like, if
yeah,
I take a second to think about how stressed out I am, I'm gonna waste time,
yeah,
and that experience kind of, like, definitely shifted, and it was a negative experience that ended up being a gift because that
mhm,
kind of like, prompted me to go down this route. But
yeah,
I work primarily with perfectionists and high achievers. So when you have that personality type, you actually do need to talk about how are you going to rest? How are you going to
yeah,
be more self compassionate? How are you going to do things that don't feel like you're working towards a goal, but you
yeah,
actually are?
and actually rest and give yourself permission to
Hmm.
rest and not, like, when I was working the tech job and working my coaching job, I'd always be like, "Okay, tonight I'm gonna do this work. Tonight I'm gonna do this," and I would always tell myself, like, "I'm gonna do this tonight. I'm gonna do this tonight." Once I leave that office, there is no going back. There is no more work that is going to be done.
Uh-huh.
And so finally, when I'm like, "Okay, this is what got done today. The rest I'll take care of tomorrow." The difference in my evenings was me never feeling fully present because I was always thinking about, I need to go do this. I need to go do this. I need to go do this. So sure, I'm sitting on the couch or I'm scrolling or I'm doing whatever, but I'm not actually resting versus
Hmm.
like, all right, that's tomorrow Jay's problem. God willing, I wake up tomorrow, like, and it felt more restful. And I felt like I was able to be present and experience joy and pleasure and just relax and
Hmm.
calm the CNS a little bit.
Yeah, there's also a difference between resting and doing something that's really rejuvenating or fun that
Hmm.
like brings you up again. Like
Yeah.
you could be laying on the
You
bed
need
but
like
thinking about all
rest
the
and
stuff you have to
rejuvenation.
do. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And even I found I've been getting really into pickleball. I don't know if
Oh,
you've heard,
cool, fun.
and it's like, it's so silly. It's like, I'm like, "Oh my god, we're just, like, wailing this wiffle ball back and forth," but it's so fun, and it's just, like, so different from softball, and it feels good too to, like, push my body a little bit and, like, feel
Hmm.
more athletic, like, I feel like a very physical being, like, I feel like I need to, like, use my body, and, like, that's why I'm a
Uh-huh.
playful dietitian is because I feel like it's so important. Not that
Yeah, I
physical
love how
movement
you
has to be
incorporate
play.
moving and dancing and all
Yeah,
your stuff. It's really fun.
yeah, and, wait, what were we just talking about?
You're talking about wiffle ball and moving,
Pickleball, pickleball, moving,
resting,
rest
rejuvenating.
oh, yeah, it's like, maybe I'm like, I can go out and play for, like, a couple hours and feel, sure, physically tired, but, like, spiritually a little bit rejuvenated and mentally rejuvenated,
Uh-huh.
and for me, I'm sure there's probably research behind this, but just like physically working out and like moving my body again in a way that feels good in a way that I enjoy, like my mind doesn't have as much energy for BS. Like
Yeah.
it's tired.
Uh-huh. No, definitely. There's have you heard of the book Spark?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that book talks it's written by a psychiatrist. It talks all about the benefits of physical exercise for mental health thing, like from ADHD to depression, anxiety, all
Mhm.
different stuff. So there's definitely research behind it. And that too, like you said, it's not physically resting, but you are mentally resting. You're not focused on all the BS. Like you
Yeah.
said, you're doing something that you just inherently are doing
Yeah. Just trying
because
to
you
get the
love
ball
it.
over and in.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um,
That's awesome.
so with my coaching, something I've been talking about it for like a couple years, and like kind of like when I'm working individually with clients, we'll talk about it. And okay, quick backstory. What I feel like I'm trying to do, especially in coaching in my business right now, is like make it a lot more accessible. Like people don't have $450 a month
Hmm.
to pay me for 6 months to coach. If you do, great. You know where to find me. You'll have a great one-on-one experience. But it's just not, I don't want my answer to making money to be just like keep like hiking my rates and hiking my rates and hiking my rates.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I want to do some more courses and webinars and more podcasts like this. Um, so there's some concepts that like in one-to-one coaching, like one thing I like my clients learn how to don't eat like an asshole. I'm not calling anybody an asshole, but like, all right, how can we, honor your hunger? How can we move past like, if you do again, the quote unquote eat like an asshole, maybe you overeat, or maybe you eat fast, or maybe you intentionally binge, or maybe like whatever it is, how can you forgive yourself? How can you move on? How can you be better prepared the next day? How can you make sure you eat consistently throughout the day? So it's like, that's like a concept I want to teach, and kind of do the nutrition side. But another thing I really talk about is like we need, I think, a really the most a really important mindset to cultivate is what I call compassionate grit.
Hmm.
So combining, you know, like the Angela Duckworth grit of like, you know, perseverance and intentional practice and discipline. Like there's a place for all of those. And it's really important. And oftentimes effort and training will outcompete talent. But when we have that grit without the compassion side, it's that like kind of perfectionist spiral you're
Hmm.
talking about, well, I can't think about XYZ because that's a waste of time, or um like turning towards like negative self-talk of like I just need to try harder or do better. So like um from like your psychology background, like if I say like compassionate grit, like does that make sense to you? Like what
Yeah,
that
I love
entails
that
or
term.
okay.
That's awesome because grit's not sustainable. You can have grit for like a short to like a medium period
Hmm.
of time, but you need rest periods in between and you need
Yeah.
that. Yeah, the compassion. I
Yeah.
love that. I've never heard that before. That's awesome.
I'm like, I feel like there's something here. I'm like, I don't know any of the research behind it, but compassionate grit, I just feel like that's, it makes sense to me of kind of combining the two.
Yeah.
Because it's important to be gritty. Like it's important to be gritty and scrappy and kind of resourceful and figure it out. And I think too of like, um,
It brings a human element to it. And you were
yeah,
saying that before.
yeah, and like I feel like we can be very conflict avoidant
Hmm.
creatures. And I think learning how to like conflict is not a bad thing. Conflict is inevitable. So
Hmm.
the more we try to avoid it, it's like the emotional agility you're talking about is like the more we try to avoid it, it's going to blow up. And I like always joke, I'm like, guys, it's never about the dishes. Like
Right.
if you and your partner are talking about the dishes, it's not about the dishes. Like, what are the 10 layers below that? Like, why is she nagging you? Why isn't he like, like
Yeah.
what is the actual underlying thing here?
Yeah.
And not just kind
And
of what's coming to
also
the
the
surface.
internal conflict. So a lot of times we do
Yes.
focus on the conflict being external with other people, but we avoid conflicts inside. Like even what you were experiencing when you're in Buffalo, like you had internal conflict,
Yeah.
but the tendency usually is to ignore it, to convince yourself that this
Mm,
is fine, I can adapt, whatever,
yeah.
right? Because you don't want to avoid all the discomfort that's going to
Yeah.
follow.
Yeah. And um, we don't lie to anybody else more than we lie to ourselves.
Hmm.
So kind of starting with that first. And I feel like when I'm like, anybody who says they've got it all figured out, I'm like, I don't trust them. Anybody who says that they don't lie or haven't lied, or it's like, come on, we are humans. We are deceptive creatures. It is not
Well,
making
that's
me
ironic because that literally is the lie that they're telling themselves or telling you in that moment.
exactly right. Like, I don't care. Mother Teresa, whoever it is, like, absolutely. Even if it's just like, oh, how's the cake? Good. It's probably not good. You just probably be like, like sometimes there's a certain time and place that we need to just like save face and keep it moving and protect ourselves or
Hmm.
whatever. But where was I going at with this? We don't lie to anybody. Oh, so the internal conflict. And that's what I feel like was really that's what that moment felt like for me of like, that like this internal conflict is here and the routes you've been trying to take to solve it are clearly not working.
Hmm.
Like getting engaged isn't going to change anything. Getting married isn't going to change anything. Having kids isn't going to change anything. Getting into like it's like what you posted. I think it was yesterday of one thing I've been thinking about a lot is I teach my clients how to enjoy the journey of
Hmm.
life, enjoy the journey of um, their wellness journey, enjoying it and not fixating on these final destinations because it's not the final destination that's going to, bring the fulfillment or bring the happiness or bring the gratitude. Like it has to start with the journey and it has to start with, how are we talking to ourselves? Are we being compassionate? And then one more thing, because I'm just keeping an eye on the time here. You mentioned self-worth and like you mentioned values. And I think that um, you said kind of something to the effect of like, we don't really stop and think about like, well, what are my values and what do I believe in? And, some people, might have like be associated with a particular religion, but are they like, how are they interpreting that religion's values or how are they like executing it in their life? Like, I feel like there's a really important part of I think the really important part of what I want to do and achieve with this podcast and conversations like this is finding that shared humanity, those shared values, and whether it's Christianity or Buddhism or agnosticism or whatever it is, but like
Hmm.
having some sort of like values or belief system that we're allowed to change it, we're allowed to adapt it, but like what is guiding your decisions and what is guiding your life? And I think that we hand a lot of power out to society. So I feel like sometimes for me, nutrition and wellness is a way for me to introduce people to like, hey, like you get to write the rules here and you get to
Hmm.
decide what you value here. And then they kind of like it trickles to other areas of their life. So um
It
I
gives
don't
them the
know.
control in a world where we often don't have that much control. So I love that.
Yeah. And we all ultimately we like control. We want a sense of control. And it's like control the controllables. Um, it's when I have my existential crises, I'm like, okay, what can I control?
Yeah.
I can control how I'm communicating with others. I can control, you know, how I'm giving back to others. Like there are certain things that we are in direct control of that I feel like are kind of like trumped sometimes by other things that are out of our control, which are important, but like, okay, what's in my control to be pro peace, to be, like pro nuance or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
I'm like, I know you have a 1 o'clock, but it was so lovely to chat. Where can folks find you?
Um, you can find me on
Oh no, wait, hold up.
Instagram.
I accidentally yanked my cord out. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. You can find me on Instagram. I have a website on TikTok at Emily Terrani Coaching is my handle or emilyterranicoaching.com. And I honestly could talk to you all day. This was
Oh my
awesome. We have to do it more often.
no, I
I
literally
feel
was
like we have
like,
so much more to talk
oh
about.
my gosh. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, come back whenever. If you have an hour next week, let's get it on. And I'm
Let's
gonna
do
try to
it.
get this posted today. So hopefully I'll be able to send you a link today. This will be on Spotify, all the major places you can get podcasts. It'll be on my YouTube channel as well. So, Emily, thank you so much. I'll make sure to link everything. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and we will absolutely be chatting soon.
Yes, no, thank you. It was so good to
See
see
ya.
you.
Bye, Emily.
Bye.